Hello students, welcome back. Myself Pushpendra Singh and we are starting the 7th class NCERT book. The subject is history and we have already covered the 3 classes. All right, and we are covering the class by class NCERT books here. We have already covered the 6th standard history book, 7th standard history book. Sorry, 7th standard history book is going on. All right, we have covered the 6th standard geography and 6th standard history. All right, so let's begin with the today's class, and we are basically covering the class to class regarding the history books. Okay, you can also refer the old NCERT books for the history also. All right, and you can also revise it from this class also. All right, so let's begin with the class. All right, so let's discuss the concept regarding the tribes, nomads, and the settled communities already. So you know about some concept regarding tribes, nomads, and the settled community. Roughly, I can say that the tribal people basically resides in the present context. You know that the tribal people basically resides in the difficult terrain, in the far-flung areas. For example, the forest areas, in the deserts, right, where the normal habitations will not be found, right? So these tribal habitations are those habitations which are basically still not being impacted the because of the advanced cultural development. The nomads are the people which basically move from one place to the another place in search of food, in search of the animals, and in search of other activities. The settled communities are those communities which are settled right at one place and started employing certain business or started doing cultivation or other works, right? So let's begin with the understanding of this concept with with the NCERT book. All right, so first of all, you must understand the various kingdoms were there. Okay, these kingdoms were basically were there throughout the Indian subcontinent, not even throughout the Indian subcontinent but also throughout the world. There are many continents, or there are many kingdoms which basically ruled, which basically flourished, which basically destroyed, right? In this process, the arts, crafts, and the production activities basically flourished. Okay, these production activities basically flourished in the towns, villages. All right, and it's also taken place through different political, social, and economic development also been taken place. All right, but this change was not equal. This change was not equal in all places, right? Different type of societies had different type of activities because every society was unique in their own aspect, isn't it? So what was happens is in our subcontinent, especially in the Indian subcontinent, right? Society basically follows the rules of varna. The rules of varna or fourfold division of the society that you people knows about. Okay, so the society was basically divided according to rules of the varna, that is fourfold division of the society, right? These rules which were basically dividing the country or dividing this Indian subcontinent into four different varnas, right? So for example, you know that the Brahman, Kshatriya, right, Vaishya, and the Sudra. So those are basically prescribed by the Brahmanas, and you must understand these rules which were basically there, these were prescribed by the Brahmanas, and these rules were basically accepted by the kings or by the kingdoms, right, or the larger rulers. Now what happens is there was differences between the high and low people, low class people. There was also differences between the rich and poor people. So this difference basically increased as the time period increases. All right, and you must understand, under Delhi Sultans, Mughals, the hierarchy of different classes basically grew further because of the changes in you know the societal structure, because of the changes in the economic structure, and because of the grip of the Brahmanas on the rulers. The rulers basically followed and accepted the rules which were prescribed by the Brahmins. All right, and you must understand they were in the regular societies, but there are another set of societies, right, where these rules which were prescribed by the Brahmanas did not follow. So then the societies, the rules prescribed by the Brahmanas did not follow, right? So here they have their own set of rules, right? So there, they don't basically divide it into numerous, unequal classes, but there are certain societies which almost look similar. These societies are called tribes, or these societies are called tribal societies. Okay, now the members of the each tribes, right? Just like in normal our cities, normal our kings, right? Normal our villages, there is a village headman like that. So for each tribe, right? Each tribe there was, they were united by the kingship bond. This kingship bond is related to the close association between the tribal members. Okay, and you must also understand these tribes were basically getting their livelihood, their food, basically from the agriculture, from the forest regions, right? Other people who basically move from place to place, right? They were basically hunter gatherers, they were basically herders, which basically move along with their animals. And you must also understand, right? They know how to use or how to full use of this natural resources, because they are totally dependent on the natural resources of this area in which they basically lived, right? Some people basically move from place to place, they were called basically nomads, right? So tribal people basically, there were tribal groups basically control the land, right? They basically jointly control the land. Pasture lands are those land basically which are basically grazed by the animals, right? So they basically divided this land among the households according to their kinship rules. So they have their own kinship rules. All right. And there were many such tribes who basically thrived in different parts of the continents also. But I told you that they were basically lived in those difficult terrains in which the normal people do not live. For example, in the forest regions, in the hilly regions, in the desert regions, in the different regions which are difficult to habitat, in which difficult to habitat. All right. And you must also understand, you know there were different type of caste were there. Okay. And there were more different caste based societies were also there, right? So there was also clashed with those caste based societies. All right. And the tribals also fought with those caste based societies. And sometimes the tribes also try to retain their freedom. They try to preserve their own separate identity, their own separate culture, right? So in that way they basically try to basically uh, you know uh, you know preserve those things or to safeguard those things rather than to attack on other caste based societies. So in that matter they are not aggressive in the term, but they are basically safeguarding their own freedom, their culture, isn't it? So there were two types of societies that were there. That was caste based societies where the brahmanas basically gave the rule based varna system. Okay. In the tribal societies where no such rule system was there, the brahmanas has very least influence or negligible influence. All right. So this relationship between the two has led to the different conflicts, right? They were also dependent, gradually caused both societies to change over the period of the time. All right. So this has led to the changes in the societies. All right. Let's understand who were these tribal people. So first of all, you must understand they were very scanty of the information about the tribes. Okay. Because even the travelers or those historians who basically came across this Indian continent, basically they basically moved to the powerful kingdoms, and they basically gave their the account of their the administration, their political history, and etc. But they did not bother about those tribal people. So very scanty information they gave about the tribes, right? And the tribal people also do not have the practice of writing in just like records, like just like inscriptions or something like that. They have no such tradition, right? So they did not preserve their own records. And but you must understand they have some sort of customs, traditions. These customs and traditions was orally transmitted. Orally means just like in normal the people basically transmitted by mouth. Okay. And they were passed down to the different generations. Like my father will transfer to me, and me I will transfer to my son. So like that they were orally transmitted. All right. And present day historians have started using these oral traditions basically to write these tribal societies. All right. So this was basically written by the historians based on these oral traditions which have been passed out since the generations to the people. All right. And you must understand, uh, as I told you, the tribal people are found almost every region in the subcontinent. Okay. And the area, the influence, right, vary from different region to the different region. And some of the powerful tribes also were there which control basically some of those areas, right? For example, in the Punjab there were tribe called Khokar tribe. These were very influential during 13th and the 14th century. All right. In the, the Gakkar become more important. Okay, their chief, there was Kamal Khan Gakkar, was made a noble or mansabdar by the king, emperor Akbar. Okay, if you see in terms of Multan and the Singh, right, the Langas and the Arguns were basically dominated extensive regions. Both were basically, were basically tribal people, right. The Balochis basically another large and the powerful tribe in the northwestern region, the Balochistan. Okay, there were small clans under different chiefs which were also there. Okay, and there were different tribes also which lives in the Himalayan region, especially the western Himalayan region. For example, the Gaddis are also tribal people, right. And you must also understand these tribal people used to live in the northeastern part of subcontinent also. For example, the northeastern states are basically dominated by the tribal people, the Nagas, the Ahoms, and many other people, isn't it? Even the present day Bihar and the Jharkhands also, right? The many such tribal communities used to stay over there. So there are many such tribal communities who were very powerful and basically who ruled, right, certain areas also. All right, and you must also understand, right? The Cheros was also tribe. So Raja Mansingh, the Akbar's famous general, attacked and defeated this Cheros in 1591. Okay, and most important then, the plunder or the loot or the booty, different type of booties were also taken from them, right. Even the Aurangzeb, the Mughal forces basically captured the Chiro fortress and subjugated the tribe, right. So there were many such conflict which basically there in between the caste societies and the tribal societies, right. The most important basically the Mundas and the Santhal you might have heard about in the modern history book. There were Mundas and the Santhals. These tribal rebellions were very famous, especially in the Odisha and the Bengal. Right? They were also more famous in the basically in the modern time when the Britishers rules India or Indian subcontinent. All right. And in the Maharashtra's highland and the Karnataka region, they were home of different type of the numerous tribal groups. For example, Kolis, Berards, and numerous other people who used to reside in the Gujarat region also. So there were many people belongs to the tribal communities who basically ruled and who basically lived in the different places of the Indian continent, isn't it? And there were many different tribal people also who stayed in the southern region also. For example, Koragas, Betars, Maravars, and many other tribal societies. A tribal population lived in the southern India. All right. And in the Rajasthan also, in the western Rajasthan, right, you have basically especially the Bhils, which across to western and the central India. All right. And many such tribal people basically become settled agriculturalists, because you must understand, over the period of the time they felt the need to settle, right. So they become a settled agriculturist, and also they may become the zamindars also. All right. And the gods are basically the present day Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Andhra Pradesh, right. They remained hunter gatherers, right. So apart from the beels, right, they are remains, they may be converted into some form of agriculturalist as well as jamidars also, right. And there were also several set of people who were basically hunter and gatherers also. Okay, now let's understand how these nomads and the mobile people lived. The nomad people, basically I told you that these people basically move from one place to the another place. Okay, so they continue to wander from one place to the another place in search of food, right. For example, you see here, they move over the long distance with their animals. So their movement is basically related to the animals. So they basically move with their animals. Okay, and they lived on milks and the pastoral products. Obviously, they generally dependent on the milk and the pastoral products, right. And when they basically move, so they exchange wool, ghee, and etc. with the settled agriculturists for the grain, clothes, and the utensils. For example, these these products are basically produced by the nomads, isn't it? And these products are basically produced by the settled agriculturalist, right, the settled one. So they basically exchange this one, right. They basically exchange. So nomads basically gave them the wool and the ghee, and the settlers basically gave them the grain, cloth, and the utensil in return. Okay, and you must also understand, they bought and sold these products as they move from one place to another place and transporting them to the larger distance on their animals. So like that, once they receive these, these items, they basically move with those items, right? They distribute these items because they ultimately sold these items to the distant place. Why they sold these items? Because they move. Once they move, they basically move with those animals, and animals also will basically, you know will carry basically those items along with that, and they basically, sold those items when they move from one place to the another place. All right, so this is what is there. Next, let's understand the banjaras. Okay, so banjara means, you must understand, they are the most important trader nomad. Trader nomad means they were nomads that they basically move from one place to another place, but they were traders. Traders means they basically sold the items as they move from one place to another place, but their main activity is to basically move, right? But they basically do such business also, so they were called basically trader nomads. Okay, their caravans means they basically move in the groups, so their caravans are called basically tanda. So tanda means the caravans which basically, made up of the trader nomads, which are also known as banjaras. They are also known as banjaras, right? Now you must understand, the sultan, who was also known as Alauddin Khilji, basically used or take the help of this banjara to transport grains to the city markets, right? So these banjaras basically used to transport the grains to the markets, and the Jahangir, the Emperor Jahangir also, right, gave this opportunity of, transporting the grain, right, to the different areas, and to use these banjaras to basically selling in the towns, right? So the Emperor Jahangir also used the banjaras, right? So ultimately, the banjaras used to transport the food grains for the Mughal army also during military campaign, right? And moreover, right, they basically need all such grains to survive also. All right, and you must also understand, there were many pastoral tribes also. Pastoral tribes means the tribe is basically dependent on the pastures, or because why they're dependent on the pastures, because they have animals, so they basically move, or they basically live with the help of animals, so they dependent basically on the animal products, isn't it? So they were called basically pastoral tribes. The pastoral tribes basically reared the animals, sold those animals because they were dependent on the animals, right? Such as they reared the basically cattle, they reared the horses, and they sold these horses and the cattle to the prosperous people, isn't it? And you must understand, different caste of petty peddlers also travel from place to place, from village to village, right? And they sold wares such as ropes, reeds, straw matting, etc., right? So there were many caste people also, who basically entertainers, who perform different types, different towns, villages for their livelihood also. Let's understand how the new caste and the hierarchy has led to the change in the society. So how this, the caste and the hierarchies in the society has led to the changes in the society. Okay, so let's understand, as I told you, that the economic development of a region basically dependent on various factors. So as the economy basically grows, right, so need of the society is also grows, right? And the people with the new skills is required to fulfill those needs, isn't it? So what happens is, for different tasks, the smaller castes were basically emerged, right? For example, the new caste appears. For example, the for the leather workers, the caste related to leather appears, right? For making, the pottery, the potters basically emerge, right? So these small castes basically emerge within the varnas, right? And the new caste appears basically amongst the brahmanas also. And you must understand, there were many tribes, and the social groups were also taken into the caste-based societies. Okay, and these tribes people, or the social groups which were basically there independently, they were also given, the status of jatis, isn't it? And there were specialized artisans also, right? The specialized artisans like carpenter, masons, smiths, they were also recognized as a separate jatis by the brahmanas. So what happens is, the brahmanas started recognizing their jatis because the brahmanas has the huge control, or the huge confidence that the kings basically you know, have a close confidential relations with the Brahmanas, and the Brahmanas rules is generally followed by the king. So what happens is as the people basically came into the fold of, you know, this social structure, the Brahmanas started giving them a different type of the caste structure, or different type of jatis, a separate jatis, and these jatis, rather than becoming varna, right, becoming, you know, the different jatis within the varna, right, and they become the basis of organizing the society also. That is how the jati system basically evolved in India. All right, let's understand the Rajput clans. Okay, so the Rajput clans is basically, they were basically part of the Kshatriyas. The new Rajput clans were very powerful by 11th and the 12th century AD, right? So they were basically Kshatriyas, right? So they belong to the different lineages, right? They were lineages like there's some belongs to the Hunas, some belongs to the Chandelas, Chalukyas, and others. All right, and some of these Rajput clans basically also the tribals also earlier, but they were included in the fold of the Kshatriyas. Okay, now some of these clans came to be regarded as a Rajput, right? Some of these clans, and they were gradually replaced the old rulers, right? Especially the agricultural areas. And you must understand, the rulers basically use their wealth to create a powerful state, right? As the society basically emerged, the rulers basically created the powerful state, and that is how the status of Rajput clans basically emerged. Okay, now the rise of Rajput clans to the position of the rulers set an example for the tribal people to follow, right? So that is how the tribal people also started following, right, the example of the rulers. All right, with the support of the Brahmanas, right? So many tribes also become the part of this caste system, isn't it? And you must understand, but only a leading tribal family could join the ruling class, not all. All right, otherwise other families in the caste in the tribal family, they basically remains as a tribe, isn't it? So that is how the few influential families also joined, you know, basically the ruling class, or the Kshatriya or the Rajput clans. And you must also understand, there were majority joins the lower jatis of the caste society. These lower jatis were basically, you must find that these lower jatis have been found throughout the country, right? And there were many dominant tribes also, right? Which these dominant tribes are found in the Punjab, Sindh, northwestern frontier, which had adopted the Islam, right? Which were adopted even quite early also. And they basically, you know, rejected this caste system. Instead of getting into the caste fold, they basically adopted the Islam long back, right? And that is how this unequal social order was emerged in the Indian subcontinent, right? Which was basically mainly prescribed by the Brahmanas or by Orthodox Hinduism, right? And you must understand, right, as the system basically emerged, many areas were basically not accepting the version of the unequal order of the society, isn't it? And you know, the different people or the emergence of these states are closely related to the social change among the tribal people, right? Because of that, the emergence of the states basically taken place. All right, let's look at the closer looks of the different type of people or the tribal people which basically resides in the different regions of the Indian subcontinent. So first of all, let's understand Gond. So as I told you, the Gond basically lives in the Gondwana land, which is the forested regions, right? So Gondwana means the land which is inhabited by the Gond. Okay, and the main practice of the livelihood, right, of this Gond population is basically shifting cultivation. So I hope you people knows about the shifting cultivation. So shifting cultivation is a practice by which the tribal people basically, you know, clear the forest land by burning. Okay, and then moving to and then basically use this land for a couple of the years, and as soon as the fertility of the land is basically exhausted, they leave this land and move to the another land, and then another land, they will be clearing this land, using this land, using for few years, then again abandoning the land, move to the third land. So this practice of shifting the land is called shifting cultivation, because they use this land for the cultivation purpose, isn't it? And this large Gond tribe was further divided into many smaller clans also, right? For each clan they have their own raja, or which are also called rai, isn't it? And you must understand, At the time of the Delhi Sultans, right, was declining, the few large Gond kingdoms were basically beginning to dominate, right? The smaller Gond chiefs, because every Gond, this Gond tribe were divided into different clans, and each clan has their own Raja. And since the Delhi Sultans were basically declining, so few Gond kingdoms, large Gond kingdoms, basically begin to dominate. And even in the Akbarnama, which is the history of Akbar's reign, mentioned the Gond kingdom of the Ghara Katanga, which has the 70,000 villages with them, and it is the one of the largest Gond kingdom which was ever found. Okay, and administrative system of these kingdoms were become very centralized, because the king basically used to dominate in the central sphere. And the kingdom was divided into many ghars. Each ghar is controlled by particular Gond clan, and you must also understand that each clan has their own raja. Each clan has their own raja or the rai, which basically controlling a particular clan, right? So that is how the kingdom was divided into different ghar. All right. And you must understand, this further divided into the units of 84 villages called chorasi, right? So you have, the unit which is also known as chorasi. This chorasi means it is a Hindi name of 84. 84 means this, as I told you, this small clan, right? The Gond clan, right? So it is divided into further small villages. So unit of 84 villages is known as chorasi. And this chorasi was again subdivided into barhots. These barhots were made up of 12 villages each. So you must understand, you have the big Gond tribe, which is divided into, the Gond clan, isn't it? Different Gond clans, right? Because this kingdom was divided into Ghar. The Ghar was, controlled by a particular Gond clan. And it is further divided into, the Chorasi, which is a unit of 84 villages, isn't it? And this Chorasi is further divided into the Barhots, which is made up of 12 villages. So like that, there is a division of, right? There is a division of the Gond society were found, right? And you must also understand, the nature of the large states changed the nature of Gond society, right? And you must understand, they were basically equal societies, but slowly they also gradually divided into the unequal societies. All right. And there were very few influence, right, in the initial phases of the time from the Brahmanas, but over the period of the time, the Brahmanas basically, expanded their influence, right? And the Brahmanas basically in turn started receiving the land grants from the Gond Rajas, and they become more influential by giving this gift, right? In terms of the land grants to the Brahmins, isn't it? Now now these Gond chiefs, which were basically powerful, which were largest, which started giving the gift to the Brahmins. Now they started thinking that now they become Rajputs. So now they want that, they wish to be recognized as the Rajputs, right? Because they started doing everything that the Rajputs used to do, isn't it? Like, even they started giving, those practices, giving the land grants to the Brahmanas. So Amandas, Gond Raja of Gara Katanga, assumed the title of Samansa, right? And his son was Dalpat, who married the princess Durgavati, who was the daughter of Salwan, and he was the Chandel Rajput Raja of Mahova. So like that, they started, adopting the title of the Rajputs. And you must understand, it is a news that the Dalpat, however, died early. So Rani Durgavati, right, was very capable. So he started ruling on behalf of her 5 year son, that was Bir Narayan. And under her kingdom, the kingdom was become more extensive, and the Mughal force under Asaf Khan attacked the Gara Katanga, right? A strong resistance was also put forth by this Rani Durgavati, and she was defeated. Obviously, she was defeated by the Asaf Khan, who was the Mughal ruler on that time, and she preferred to die rather than to surrender in front of the Asaf Khan. And her son also died after fighting the Mughal ruler Asaf Khan. All right. Now, this Gara Katanga was a rich Gond state. Now, it earned basically many such, the reputation of defending its kingdom from from the Mughals. Now you must understand they also earned much wealth by tapping and exporting wild elephant to the other kingdom also. When the Mughal defeated the Gond, they appeared or they captured the huge booty, because every kingdom, when they defeat another kingdom, they used to loot. They used to loot. They used to capture the huge booty consisting of the coins, consisting of the elephants, right? And they basically annexed the part of kingdom, and uh, and basically granted the rest to the Chandrasa, who was the uncle of Bir Narayan, right? And Gong kingdom still survived despite of their fall, and they become, over the period of the time, it become weaker, and later it basically struggles unsuccessfully against the stronger Bundelas and the Marathas. So that is how, even though the tribal societies looks like as if they are weaker, but they are not weaker. Many such tribal societies like Gond flourished, right? They basically faced a stiff opposition in front of Mughals also. And they also faced the stiff opposition, or they also the projected stiff opposition also, right, to the people who basically, or to the rulers who basically resides adjacently. Okay, let's understand the Ahoms. So Ahoms means the people who basically lives in the Assam region, right? So Ahoms are basically the people who migrated to the Brahmaputra Valley, right, from the present day Myanmar in the 13th century. So Ahom kingdom is basically, in and around the Brahmaputra Valley, especially in Indian subcontinent. It's located in the state of Assam. In the state of Assam, they were basically, moved from the present day Myanmar in the 13th century to the Brahmaputra Valley. Okay, and they created a new system or new state by pressing the older political system, right, which was also known as the system of buyans, or which are also known as the system of landlords. All right. And uh, and you must understand these Ahom kingdom were basically in the 16th century. They annexed the kingdom of Chutias. Okay, and in 1523 and 1581, right, they basically started subjugating many more tribes also. All right. And in that process, the Ahoms basically grow further, and the Ahom built a large state. Okay, and they use basically firearms in early as 1530. And you must also understand, in 1660 also they could also make the quality gunpowder and the cannons, isn't it? And the Ahoms basically faced many invasions from the southwest, right? For example, in 1662, the Mir Jumla, who was basically a Mughal, attacked the Ahom kingdom. But despite their brave defense, the Ahom was defeated, right? So it was, direct Mughal control over this region could not last long, right? And Ahom state, dependent upon on the forced labor, and they forced to work for the state, which were called as pikes, which were called as pikas. Okay, so that is how the home, the state was basically developed, and they basically faced the stiff resistance in front of the Mughals also, despite of their defeat. Despite of their defeat, right? The direct Mughal control over the region could not last long, and this Ahom state basically dependent upon the forced labor, right? Those people who used to work forcefully, right, as a forced labor, they are called basically pikes. All right. And the census of the population was taken, and the each village has to send a number of pikes by the rotation. And these pikes, as I told you, the Ahoms were dependent on the forced labor, isn't it? Those people who forced to work for the state are called pikes. So these people are basically pikes who used to work forcibly for the state. And each village used to send a number of the pikes by the rotation, right, for various types of work, isn't it? And and the people from heavily populated areas, are shifted to the less populated areas, because of the competition in those areas and less availability of the resources. And the people who basically belongs to the home clans were started breaking up because of the movement of these people, right? And in the by the first half of the 17th century, the administration become quite centralized, right? and almost all adult in the family, right, served in the army during the war, right? Almost all male adult in the family served in the army during the war. And they also engaged in a in doing various activities like building the dams, irrigation systems, other public works also. So but they were greatly engaged, and the homes also introduced a new method of rice cultivation. Okay. And just like a normal, the society, the home society was also divided into different clans. They were also called khils, right? And there were few caste also in the artisans. So artisans in the home areas came to be adjoining. Okay. The kingdoms, which are also known as khel, right, or which are also known as the clans, which are also known as khel, often control several villages. Khel, several villages, right? The peasants were given land by this village, isn't it, by this village community. And even the king also could not take away the land without the community's consent. So they were very powerful, right? So such clans were somehow very powerful in that aspect. All right. In that aspect. All right. So let's begin. So originally the home worshipped their own tribal gods, just like a normal tribal people used to do. Okay. And you must understand, the Brahmanas influence over the home kingdom were basically increased during the first half of 17th century. So the influence of the Brahmanas basically increased, right? Increased. And the temples and the Brahmanas were granted the land by the kings. All right. Just like in normal Gond kingdom, they started in granting the land. The Brahmanas also were started granting the land. And in the reign of Shiv Singh, right, the Hindus become the predominant region in the Brahmaputra Valley. And the home king did not completely give up the traditional belief after adopting the Hinduism, right? So home society was very sophisticated, first of all, right? Though the kings basically given the land, the kings basically given the land to the Brahmanas, the poets and scholars also will be given the land grant, right? And you must also understand, the important works of the Sanskrit was also translated into the local languages, isn't it? And the historical works, which are also known as Buranjis, were also written down, right? So it was the first in the home language and then in the Assamese language, right? So all such things are basically written down, right, as historic works related to the home kingdom. All right. So under the conclusion, we can say that there were considerable social changes took place in the subcontinent during the period we have examining, right? And the Barnavist society and the tribal society constantly interacted with each other, as we have seen that. Okay. The interaction caused both societies to adopt to each other's culture, right? They faced a stiff resistance from each other, right? And there were many different tribes, right? They took up diverse livelihood also. Okay. And over the period of the time, many of them as managed with caste based society. Okay, they entered into the caste based society, as we have seen. And they however rejected both the caste system and the orthodox Hinduism. But some of the tribes have established their own extensive stage with well defined system of administration. Okay. And they become more politically powerful, and they try to come enter into the reign of the Rajputs, or the class of the Rajputs, right? They try to project them as a separate class, right, which is almost equal to the Rajputs in that perspective. All right. Let's understand let's understand the devotional paths to the divine. All right. So people, as I told you, the people from the rituals of the worship, right? Or they basically people basically do different type of rituals or different type of worship. Some people sing bhajans, some people does kirtan, some people does kavvalis, right? Some people chant the name of the god in the silence, right? Right. Some of them even move to the tears. So there were different people perform different rituals of the worship. Okay. Now, these such intense devotion or the love of the God is legacy of various kinds of bhakti and the Sufi movement. Okay. So these bhakti and the Sufi movement evolved since 8th century in the Indian subcontinent, right? So the different type of the worship, different type of rituals of the worship basically evolved in the 8th century, in the 8th century onward. All right. So idea of the supreme god was emerged. The idea of supreme god was emerged, and you must understand, before, even before the large kingdom was emerged, the different groups basically, they used to worship their own gods, right? And they have their own gods and the goddess. Okay. And you must understand, the people brought together through, growth of the towns, trade, and the empires. So new idea began to develop regarding the new state of affairs, regarding the new gods and the goddess, right? And the idea that all living things passes through a countless of the cycles of the birth and rebirth. This idea also started flashing, right, in the mind of the people, right? The birth and rebirth performance is depending on the good deeds, and the bad came to be widely accepted, right? So this idea of cycles of the birth, rebirth has started coming into the picture, right? It was widely accepted, isn't it? And the similarly, the idea which we call as the all human beings are not equal. Even the birth gained ground during this period, right? So this belief also started gaining that all human beings are not equal, and the belief that social privilege came from the birth as a noble family or high caste was subjected with the many learned text. So they were started associating with many learned text. All right, so we shall stop here, and we will complete this portion in our next class. All right, so we are winding up today, and we will cover up this class, these topics in our next class. All right, thank you very much. Thank you.